Hey there, I'm Heather, the artist behind Heartkey Creations. Today's video is going to be a very sped up version of my colored pencil painting, I Am the Fire. So, I don't know what it is, but I love fire, and I like redheaded girls with blue eyes. My hair really is out of a bottle. I'm really blonde, or dirty blonde, sort of blonde anyway. um, so I've sped it up a lot because a lot of it is just layer after layer of the same colors and the same thing over and over again. So I've started here with the black background and just shading in the entire background in black. I really wanted the background to be kind of fuzzy looking, like it was being looked at through smoke. And so I just kept layering as much black as I could. I used Strathmore toned gray paper for this. It's the first time I've ever used it, and it wasn't bad to work with, and it definitely took a lot of layers. It's definitely different from the Fabriano though, but it worked fine. I have no complaints about the paper at all. It's just different. So I'm just shading in some darker areas of the background that I wanted to show up even more darkly, or starkly, more contrasted, more something. And now I'm going in to put in the fire for the background. So the flames for the background, I also wanted to look like they were being looked at through a haze of smoke. And so it's a very light few layers. And I layered and layered and layered this. Gosh, I don't know, there's probably at least 6 layers total on here before if anybody wants to count and let me know, go ahead. But I mean, I definitely put at least 6 different layers of pencil down before I actually blended it out with the odorless mineral spirits. So, yep. And yes, I did trace out my concept. I did draw out my concept on tracing paper and then traced it out over top of my paper so that I didn't have to draw it again. So I've just taken red and orange and yellow, and I've used a couple different shades of red. I think I only used one shade of orange and a couple different shades of yellow. One of the yellows being close to an orange to help pop and brighten things out. I learned a big lesson during this one. If I want a black background, use black paper. It would have been so much easier if I had just used black paper and then used gray and whites or blues or something else to create the smoky look instead of trying to cover the paper in black. I use a very light pressure throughout almost the entire process here on that pencil so that I can make sure that I don't lose the lights anywhere if and then have to go back and put them in somehow. And I can just keep layering without light pencil strokes. And I'm using the side of the pencil too for quite a bit of this. I often use white to kind of blend things out a little bit and to make sure that I don't lose all of the highlights. So there I'm just kind of going in and putting the streams of smoke, the ribbons of smoke in, and kind of outlining where I want those to be. I wasn't actually using the white to blend there, but towards the end I do use the white to blend out. The original footage for this was 3.5 hours worth of pencil work. And, you know, that doesn't include the actual drawing of the picture or, you know, getting the outline on the paper. And I sped it up so that it was only about 27 minutes for you guys. But you can see, I mean, I'm still layering. I still have not blended out any of this. I'm still layering. You can definitely see the flames and for the background starting to take some shape. And now I'm finally going in to blend it out a little bit. I think I got tired of layering. I felt like I was never going to get the coverage on there that I needed or wanted, was looking for with just continuing to layer. I thought the paper was going to give out on me before I finally got that coverage, and that I should probably just blend it out and see what I get first before I kept going. So that's what I did. And the paper never gave out on me. I could have continued to go and layer up more for sure, even by the end of it. Which you'll see, I still do quite a few layers over top of that after that dries out. It looks a lot darker while it's wet, but don't worry, when it dries, it goes right back to the colors that it's supposed to be. I kind of panicked a little bit when I had drawn out, actually when I colored in the face. The skin tones are very hard to see in the lighting that I have, I guess. So when I tried to blend all that out, I'm very, very scared that it wasn't going to come back, even though I had already seen, you know, that when it dried out, it came back on the other layers. Don't let it panic you. It does go back the way it's supposed to. So now here, I had decided that, you know, her dress was going to be flame. So I'm going in and putting in the darkest parts of my flame and making the shapes come to life for the flame dress. Using red and oranges. And yellows, of course. I used Polychromos pencils for this, and that Strathmore toned gray, and just odorless mineral spirits for the blending. And oh my goodness, I'm looking at my pencil thing right now, and there are probably a good 20 colors sitting in the cup that I used to hold my current project. There's a good 20 colors in there, probably different shades of reds and oranges and yellows and blacks and blues and the skin tones. Yeah. So with flames, a good trick to remember, or one of the most important things to remember, is that the lighter areas are the hottest of the flame. Like white flame is actually the hottest fire there is. So I didn't include any white flames in here, but the red will actually be less hot, but the lighter the flame is, the hotter it is, the hotter the area is. And I definitely worked more, or concentrated more on the details and popping out the brightness of the flame in her dress than I did for that background. Because, like I said, for the background, I wanted it to look like it was, buried in the mist of smoke. I wanted her to pop out in the foreground. So by making sure that the background stayed kind of fuzzy and not covering her with anything, and making sure that her colors were nice and bright, it pops her out, makes her look like she's standing in the foreground. There I'm going in with the gray and lightening up some of those areas that I wanted to look more foggy and smoky. And here I'm going back over with some black because, it was still wicked light compared to anything else. And I knew I still was going to work on her dress and pop her out more. It was nowhere near being done. And again, I'm still working pretty lightly with that pencil, not putting a ton of pressure on there so that I'm not ruining the tooth of the paper. And I really seem to be able to just go over and over and over on that Strathmore gray toned as many times as I needed to. And as you can see, every layer you do just makes it pop just a little bit more. It brings it together just a little bit more. So definitely don't get frustrated if you've done, a few layers and it's still not looking the way you want it to. Sometimes it takes a lot of layers to bring the look together. I got sick of looking at just that toned gray face, so I popped in some lips there really quick. It made me feel better. So now I'm starting to fill in her skin. Getting the lighting so that it showed up on camera for you guys was really kind of hard, actually, between trying to make sure that it was lit enough that I could see it, but not completely washed out so that you couldn't see it. It was hard. I didn't worry too much about details on her hands because I knew that they were going to the hands themselves were actually going to be a little bit, have smoky layer on top of them. So I didn't worry about too much detail there. I did just enough so that it was shaded correctly and you could tell that they were clearly hands with fingers and that there were balls of flame getting ready to come off of them. Zoomed in a little bit for you guys finally. Still trying to play with that light so that we can get the best lighting for you guys to be able to see. The face had a lot of small details, so I definitely wanted to make sure I zoomed in on that for you guys anyway. while I was working on that. Adding a little bit of shadow. Oh, and that blending. See how scary that blending looked? Oh, I got so scared. I was like, oh my gosh, where did all of my color go? So while that dried, I worked more on the background. More layers and more layers. Just adding final details and highlights and shadows on the background flames in there, making sure that they stand out enough that they definitely don't get lost, but aren't so bright that they take over. And of course, blending out again everything. Mostly avoiding the flames there just to make sure that I don't dull them out at all. Now I'm going in and making sure that the shadows are correct in her hands and arms so that it looks like she has hands and arms and that her arm doesn't completely blend in with her chest. She's, at that angle where she's kind of turned around looking at you like, are you friend? Are you foe? Do you get this fireball in my hand? Or shall I send it somewhere else? And I'm still just adding some shadows in. And here I'm going around her face. Really, I'm going around her hairline to try and add some shadow so it doesn't look like her hair is just sitting flat on her head. Just getting shadow in there. Zooming in for you to see the colors a little bit better again. You can see her face is starting to come together in the shapes and highlights, or at least with the highlights and some shape to it. Now I'm going to add some shadow to her face and some pink to her cheeks, so it'll help bring out the shapes even more. And of course, I'm still trying to fight the angle for you. And now, here comes the hardest part of this whole thing, her eyes. Because they're so little, her eyes were, oh my gosh, they gave me such a hard time. So I'm just using blue for her eyes, and of course black for the middle part of the eye. Sharpening that black pencil as much as I can, and even using black in her lips to help shape them a little bit more, because I used a very dark red on the lips. And you can see here I'm using white to go in for some highlights and bringing some of the depth back with some of the dark brown. There, I was just adding some eyelashes. And now I'm starting to work on her hair, where I've just started adding some of the white in to try and keep some of the highlights lighter for her hair to give it depth and dimension. It's funny how I always save the hair for last, and it's not because I hate working with hair, it's just I feel like I'm not even sure why I save it for last, honestly. I just do. And once that hair goes in, the whole piece comes together. It's really funny why, I should probably do it first. Who knows? Actually, I think I save it for last just so that I can make sure that the face is in, and if I want to bring out any hair down into her face or anything, the face is already done, and I don't have to worry about working around the hair that way and losing anything there. I'm just making sure that her darks are dark enough and her lights are light enough, and I blend it all out at the end, and voila, you have I Am the Fire. Pretty fire dress, pretty face. Have you subscribed yet? I do 4 videos a week, and I don't want you to miss out on anything. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so that you definitely don't miss anything. And if you're the type of person that likes coloring pages or traceables, hit the link to my Patreon and get some colorables and traceables for $1 a month. All right, I'll see you next time.